Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following content explores the depiction of divorce attorneys and legal proceedings within the realm of contemporary United States fiction. This analysis is provided strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It does not constitute legal advice, nor should it be used as a substitute for professional counsel. Family law is complex and varies significantly by jurisdiction. Viewers should conduct their own due diligence and consult with a licensed attorney regarding any personal legal matters. In the opening pages of the most celebrated American novels of the last decade, the divorce lawyer is rarely a hero, but they are almost always the most powerful person in the room. There is a staggering statistic often cited in sociological studies of American domesticity. Nearly half of all marriages in the United States may result in dissolution. Yet, in our literature, the lawyer is the ghost in the machine of the American dream. Think about the visceral tension in a scene where a character hands over a retainer check that represents 5 years of savings just to buy back their own freedom. Why is it that in contemporary fiction, the divorce lawyer is often portrayed as a high-priced surgeon of the soul, performing a radical amputation of a life once shared? We are going to deconstruct the archetype of the legal predator versus the legal protector, and why the way these characters are written reveals a hidden, uncomfortable truth about the American middle class. If you have ever wondered why some stories make the courtroom feel more like a battlefield than a place of justice, or why the shark lawyer has become the defining villain of the modern domestic thriller, you cannot afford to miss a single minute of this breakdown. Today we are embarking on a deep dive masterclass that solves a specific problem for the modern reader and writer: understanding the mechanics of conflict in the American home. We are moving beyond the surface-level tropes of marriage story and into the gritty technical reality of how contemporary authors use the figure of the lawyer to map out power dynamics, financial anxiety, and the erosion of the nuclear family. By the end of this series, you will understand the historical trends that shifted the lawyer from a background character to a primary antagonist, the case studies of best-selling novels that use legal jargon as a weapon of psychological warfare, and the potential outcomes of how these narratives shape our real-world perception of the justice system. To understand the contemporary divorce lawyer in fiction, we first have to look at the retainer as a threshold. In modern literature, the moment a protagonist enters a law office is the point of no return. Authors like Jonathan Franzen or Meg Wolitzer often use these settings to highlight a stark contrast between the emotional chaos of the client and the sterile billable hour coldness of the attorney. This isn't just a stylistic choice. It reflects a deep-seated American anxiety about the commodification of grief. When we look at a character like Nora Fanshawe in recent cinematic and literary interpretations, we see the polished steel archetype. This character is meticulously dressed, speaks in precise, non-emotive sentences, and views the dissolution of a family as a series of assets to be liquidated or leveraged. This reflects a historical trend in fiction where the lawyer serves as the external ego. The client is too broken to fight, so they hire a surrogate to be angry for them. This brings us to the first major pillar of our analysis: the billable hour as a narrative pacing device. In contemporary fiction, time is literally money. Every scene set in a lawyer's office carries a heavy subtext of depleting resources. Authors use this to create artificial pressure. When a character is told that a phone call costs $400, the stakes of the dialogue immediately skyrocket. This is a brilliant tool for writers to force characters into desperate, often irrational decisions. We see this in domestic suspense novels where the fear of financial ruin via legal fees becomes as terrifying as the threat of physical violence. It forces the reader to ask, how much is your peace of mind worth in a liquid market? Furthermore, we must examine the discovery phase as a literary metaphor for the death of privacy. In the legal world, discovery is the process of exchanging information. In fiction, it is the moment of ultimate vulnerability. Contemporary novelists use the lawyer character to peel back the layers of a marriage that the characters themselves were too afraid to touch. The lawyer becomes an unreliable narrator's nightmare. They find the hidden bank accounts, the deleted emails, and the secret lives. By analyzing case studies of novels like The Silent Wife or Standard Deviation, we can see how the lawyer acts as a forensic scientist of the heart. They don't care about the why of the heartbreak, they care about the what of the evidence. This shift from emotional empathy to evidentiary coldness is what makes the contemporary divorce lawyer such a compelling, and often terrifying, figure in U.S. fiction. We also have to discuss the gendered lawyer archetype. There has been a significant shift over the last 20 years in how male and female divorce attorneys are characterized. Historically, the shark was almost exclusively male, a cigar-chomping, aggressive litigator. However, contemporary fiction has introduced the empathetic executioner, often a female attorney who uses the language of empowerment and moving on to mask a ruthlessly efficient legal strategy. This adds a layer of complexity to the narrative. Is the lawyer a sister-in-arms helping a woman reclaim her life? Or is she a cog in a machine that profits from the destruction of the family unit? The tension between professional solidarity and the reality of a business model based on conflict is a goldmine for modern authors. Let's look at the data of the narrative settlement. In reality, most cases settle out of court. But in fiction, we are obsessed with the trial. Why? Because the courtroom is the modern Colosseum. It is the only place where the unspoken resentments of a 10-year marriage are given the weight of testimony. Authors use the lawyer to translate, "I don't love you anymore," into "my client seeks primary physical custody," and the vacation home. This translation process, taking raw, messy human emotion and turning it into cold, hard legal filings, is where the real drama of contemporary fiction lives. It is a process of dehumanization that serves a narrative purpose. It forces the characters to see themselves as the court sees them, as a set of variables in an equation. As we move deeper into this analysis, we will explore the office space's characterization. The mahogany row offices of Park Avenue lawyers in fiction versus the strip mall practitioners in gritty realism tells us everything we need to know about the class warfare inherent in American divorce. The environment where the legal advice is dispensed dictates the tone of the entire story. A glass-walled office overlooking Manhattan suggests a divorce of management and acquisition, while a cluttered, paper-filled office in a suburb suggests a war of attrition. We will break down how authors use these descriptions to signal to the reader exactly what kind of tragedy they are about to witness. This is not just background noise. It is the architecture of the American domestic collapse. By understanding these tropes, you will never look at a legal scene in a novel the same way again. You will start to see the strings being pulled, the billable hours mounting, and the slow, methodical way that contemporary fiction uses the law to dissect the human condition. To truly grasp the power of the divorce lawyer archetype in contemporary U.S. fiction, we must examine the specific mechanics of the initial consultation, which authors use as a masterclass in character destabilization. Imagine if you are a protagonist in a 2026 domestic thriller. You walk into a high-rise office in Chicago. You are carrying a folder of printouts, tax returns, and a heavy heart. You expect a therapist, what you get is an auditor. In novels like those by Tana French or Leanne Moriarty, the lawyer does not start by asking how you feel. They start by asking for your logins. This transition from the emotional to the digital and logistical is a critical pivot point in modern storytelling. It signals the end of the narrative of love and the beginning of the narrative of data. Historical trends in literature show that older stories focused on the scandal of the affair, but contemporary fiction focuses on the forensic trail of the affair. The lawyer is the one who interprets this data, turning a late-night text message into a line item in a custody battle. Let us look at a case study of the shark versus the shield. In fiction, the shark is often characterized by a lack of physical stillness. They are always moving, always billing, and always interrupting. This character exists to show the reader that the protagonist has lost control. When the lawyer interrupts the protagonist to take a call from another high-profile client, the author is telling you that your life's greatest tragedy is just another Tuesday for the legal profession. This creates a specific kind of American anxiety, the fear of being a file number. Conversely, the shield is the lawyer who promises protection but often delivers isolation. They tell the protagonist to stop talking to their spouse, stop posting on social media, and stop living their normal life. In contemporary fiction, the shield lawyer is used to create a psychological cage. By following legal advice, the character becomes more alone, heightening the tension and driving the plot toward a breaking point, where the only person they can trust is someone they are paying $500 an hour. The concept of the billable minute serves as a ticking clock in the modern American novel. In traditional thrillers, the clock is a bomb or a kidnapper's deadline. In contemporary literary fiction, the clock is the depleting bank account. Authors use this to create a sense of frantic urgency. Every page spent on a lawyer's backstory or a digression into legal theory is a page where the protagonist is losing money. This mirrors the real-world pressure of the U.S. legal system, where the middle class often finds itself too wealthy for legal aid, but too poor to sustain a multi-year litigation. When an author describes the ticking of a clock in a law office, they are not just setting the scene. They are describing the sound of a character's inheritance or their children's college fund evaporating. This financial stakes raising is a hallmark of the viral domestic drama, ensuring that the reader feels the weight of every tactical decision. Consider the role of the paralegal as the unsung witness. In many contemporary novels, the primary lawyer is an unreachable deity, while the paralegal is the one who sees the protagonist's true breakdown. This character often serves as the moral compass of the story. They are the ones who handle the messy boxes of photos and the tear-stained letters. By including these characters, authors provide a bridge between the coldness of the law and the warmth of humanity. However, even these characters are often depicted as jaded. They have seen 1,000 divorces. They know exactly how yours will end. This creates a potential outcome of fatalism for the reader. If the people who work in the system believe it is broken, how can the protagonist hope for a fair result? This adds a layer of systemic dread that is uniquely present in 2026 contemporary fiction. We must also dive into the weaponization of the affidavit. In modern fiction, the written statement is where the real character assassination happens. Authors use the lawyer character to coach the protagonist into writing a version of their life that is technically true but emotionally unrecognizable. This is the moment where the fiction within the fiction is created. The lawyer takes a mundane argument about the dishes and turns it into a documented history of domestic instability. This illustrates the historical trend of the legal system as a distorting lens. When a character reads an affidavit written by their spouse's lawyer, it functions as a horror element. It is a monstrous reflection of their life, crafted by a professional to be as damaging as possible. This use of legal documentation allows authors to explore the theme of identity. Who are you when a stranger defines you in a court filing? Step by step, the lawyer dismantles the protagonist's assumptions about fairness. In the first act, the protagonist believes in justice. In the second act, the lawyer explains that the law is not about justice. It is about the application of statutes to a specific set of facts. This revelation is a staple of the American legal novel. It represents the loss of innocence for the adult character. We see this in recent case studies where the lawyer explicitly tells the client to lower their expectations. This is a strategic move by authors to ground the story in a harsh reality, making any eventual victory feel earned rather than granted by a benevolent system. The lawyer acts as the gatekeeper to this reality, often charging a premium for the privilege of delivering bad news. Furthermore, we need to analyze the negotiator archetype. This is the lawyer who never wants to see the inside of a courtroom. They represent the modern American preference for mediation and private settlement. In fiction, these characters are often the most manipulative. They use the threat of a trial, the long, expensive public exposure, to force the protagonist into a deal that leaves them feeling empty. Authors use the mediation room as a pressure cooker. It is a small space, usually with bad coffee and fluorescent lighting, where the entire future of a family is decided in an afternoon. The lawyer's role here is to manage the protagonist's fatigue. They know that after 8 hours of arguing over a pension plan, the client will sign almost anything just to go home. This reflects a cynical but accurate portrayal of the exhaustion inherent in the U.S. legal process. Imagine a scenario where the lawyer and the spouse's lawyer are actually friends. They go to the same golf club. Their children go to the same private school. This is a common trope in contemporary fiction used to highlight the protagonist's status as an outsider in their own tragedy. The legal professionals are players in a game they play every day, while for the client, this is the most significant event of their life. This discrepancy creates a profound sense of alienation. When the lawyers joke with each other in the hallway while the clients sit in separate rooms crying, the author is making a pointed critique of professional detachment. It suggests that the conflict is being fueled not by the needs of the clients, but by the requirements of the legal industry itself. Why does the lawyer always seem to have a drinking problem or a failed marriage of their own in these books? It is because authors use the lawyer's personal life to foreshadow the protagonist's future. The lawyer is the ghost of Christmas future. They are what happens when you spend your life immersed in the wreckage of other people's hearts. By making the lawyer a cynical, thrice-divorced alcoholic, the writer reinforces the idea that no one wins in this system, not even the people who run it. This adds a layer of tragedy to the professional advisor, turning them into a cautionary tale. As we move forward, we will look at how the lawyer handles the most volatile asset of all, the children. We will see how contemporary fiction deals with the guardian ad litem and the psychological evaluation, where the lawyer's influence extends into the very minds of the next generation. But before we get there, we have to ask a darker question. What happens when the lawyer realizes their client is actually the villain of the story? What happens when the legal protector realizes they are defending the indefensible? The answer lies in the tactical use of the no-fault clause and the disturbing way that truth is traded for leverage in the final hours of a settlement. The next phase of this deep dive will uncover the hidden language of the custody agreement and the terrifying power of the non-disclosure agreement. The hidden language of a custody agreement in contemporary American fiction is where the lawyer's role shifts from a financial auditor to a social engineer. In the landscape of 2026 literature, we are seeing a massive surge in stories that center on the granular details of parenting plans. This is no longer just about who gets the kids on weekends, it is about the weaponization of the right of first refusal and the geographical restriction clause. Imagine if you are a character in a high-stakes domestic drama set in suburban Virginia. Your lawyer leans across the desk and explains that if you want to take a promotion in California, you might have to litigate for the next 2 years. In fiction, the lawyer uses these clauses to show the protagonist that their future autonomy is now a negotiable asset. This reflects a historical trend where the legal system acts as a tether, binding two people who despise each other together for the sake of a court-mandated schedule. Authors use this to create a feeling of claustrophobia. The lawyer is the person tightening the knots. Let us examine a case study of the parental fitness evaluation trope. In novels like those by Celeste Ng or A.M. Holmes, the lawyer often introduces a third-party evaluator, a guardian ad litem or a forensic psychologist. This is a brilliant narrative device because it introduces an objective, yet cold, observer into the most private parts of a home. The lawyer's job here is to prepare the protagonist for the invasion. They give instructions on how to clean the house, what books should be on the shelf, and how to interact with the children while being watched. This creates a fascinating psychological tension. The character is performing a version of parenthood for a legal audience. Step by step, the lawyer coaches them on how to neutralize their spouse's accusations. If the spouse claims the protagonist is unstable, the lawyer produces a stack of medical records to prove otherwise. In this context, the lawyer is a director and the home is a stage. The potential outcome is a curated reality that satisfies the court, but leaves the character feeling like a fraud. Then we have the terrifying power of the non-disclosure agreement, or the NDA, within the context of a private settlement. In 2026, the obsession with reputation management in the US has filtered down from celebrities to the upper middle class. Contemporary novelists use the NDA as a gag order that carries the weight of financial ruin. Imagine a scenario where a protagonist discovers a dark secret about their spouse, perhaps financial fraud or a hidden addiction. The lawyer advises them that revealing this secret in court might lower the overall value of the marital estate, thereby hurting the protagonist's own settlement. This creates a moral vacuum. The lawyer essentially sells the protagonist's silence back to them in the form of a larger alimony check. This is a recurring theme in modern noir. The law is a mechanism for burying the truth rather than revealing it. The lawyer becomes a co-conspirator in the silence, prioritizing the math of the settlement over the ethics of the situation. The language used in these fictional agreements is often intentionally dense to signify the loss of the protagonist's voice. When an author includes snippets of legal jargon, phrases like force majeure or pendant light, they are signaling that the characters have entered a world where their own words no longer have currency. They need a translator, and that translator is the lawyer. This creates a dependency that is central to the power dynamic. In many case studies of contemporary literature, the protagonist begins to mimic the lawyer's speech. They stop saying "I am sad" and start saying the current arrangement is unsustainable. This linguistic shift is a marker of the character's soul being subsumed by the process. It is a slow-motion transformation that authors use to show the corrosive nature of prolonged legal conflict. We must also analyze the tactical use of the temporary order. In the world of fiction, the temporary order is anything but temporary. It sets the status quo that the court is often reluctant to change. A savvy fictional lawyer knows that if they can secure a specific house or a specific school district in the first 30 days, they have essentially won the war of attrition. This leads to the trope of the midnight filing. We see this in legal thrillers where the lawyer works through the night to file a motion before the spouse can react. This creates a high-paced, high-stakes environment that mirrors the adrenaline of a physical chase, but the weapons are laptops and process servers. It highlights the competitive nature of the US legal field, where being first is often more important than being right. Consider the role of the forensic accountant as an extension of the lawyer's reach. In contemporary fiction, the lawyer is rarely alone. They have a team of specialists whose job is to find the money. This is where the masterclass in financial betrayal begins. Authors use the discovery of hidden offshore accounts or cryptocurrency wallets to provide the big reveal in the second act. The lawyer acts as the Grand Inquisitor, presenting the evidence of the spouse's duplicity. This serves a dual purpose. It justifies the lawyer's high fees and provides the protagonist with the emotional ammunition they need to stop feeling guilty about the divorce. The lawyer isn't just a legal advisor here. They are a truth seeker in a world of lies. However, this truth comes with a heavy price tag. The case studies show that for every dollar found, a significant portion is paid back to the professionals who found it, a reality that authors use to critique the predatory nature of the industry. In the 2026 literary landscape, we also see the rise of the collaborative divorce lawyer. This is a character who claims to want a peaceful resolution, but often finds themselves caught in the crossfire. Authors use this archetype to explore the limits of civility. What happens when one side wants to be collaborative and the other side hires a shark? The collaborative lawyer often appears weak or ineffective in the face of raw aggression. This creates a potential outcome where the nice person loses everything. This narrative choice reinforces the American cultural myth that the law is a jungle where only the most ruthless survive. It sets up a conflict between the character's desire to be a good person and their need to protect their future. The lawyer also serves as the gatekeeper to the narrative of fault. Even in no-fault states, fiction leans heavily into the idea of moral fault. The lawyer's job is to take the spouse's indiscretions and find a way to make them legally relevant, usually by arguing that the behavior negatively impacted the marital assets or the children. This is where the lawyer's creativity shines. They take a vacation the spouse took with a lover and reframe it as a dissipation of marital funds. They take a spouse's hobby and reframe it as neglect. This intentional reframing is a core component of how contemporary fiction deconstructs the idea of a shared history. The lawyer effectively rewrites the history of the marriage to suit the needs of the litigation. As we conclude this segment, we have to look at the physical toll this takes on the legal professional. In the most nuanced U.S. fiction, we see the lawyer's own office start to feel like a graveyard. The stacks of files are the tombstones of dead relationships. Why does the author choose to show the lawyer staring out the window at 2 a.m.? It is to remind the reader that the lawyer is the only one who truly understands the scale of the destruction. But there is a final, even more disturbing layer to uncover. What happens when the legal battle moves from the office to the digital world? How does the contemporary lawyer handle the rise of deepfakes, social media surveillance, and the hacking of personal clouds in a 2026 divorce? The next part of our deep dive will explore the lawyer as the digital executioner and the terrifying ways that technology has turned the courtroom into a hall of mirrors where no one can tell what is real. In the digital landscape of 2026, the contemporary divorce lawyer in fiction has transitioned from a paper-shuffling litigator into a high-tech digital executioner. We are seeing a profound shift in American domestic narratives where the primary battlefield is no longer the bedroom or the kitchen, but the cloud. Imagine if you are a protagonist in a modern thriller like those written by Harlan Coben or Gillian Flynn. The lawyer sits you down and, instead of asking for your testimony, they hand you a report generated by a private digital forensics firm. They show you a heat map of your spouse's movements over the last 6 months, tracked via their smartwatch and the GPS in their electric vehicle. This is the new standard of discovery in U.S. fiction. The lawyer's role is to weaponize the digital exhaust of a life. Historical trends in literature used to focus on the private investigator following a car. Now the lawyer simply subpoenas the server logs. This shift reflects a terrifying reality about the total erosion of privacy in the modern age, where every smart device in a home is a potential witness for the prosecution. Let us examine a case study of the social media autopsy. In contemporary novels, the lawyer often spends chapters deconstructing a single Instagram post or a LinkedIn update. Authors use this to highlight the performative nature of modern marriage. A lawyer might point out that while a protagonist was posting a photo of a happy family dinner, their bank records show they were actually at a bar 3 towns away. This creates a fascinating narrative tension between the digital image and the physical reality. Step by step, the lawyer uses these digital footprints to create a potential outcome of total character assassination. They don't need to prove you are a bad parent in a general sense. They just need to show a pattern of digital inconsistencies that make you appear untrustworthy to a judge. This is the lawyer as the digital executioner. They kill the character's credibility by using their own data against them. Then we have the rise of the deepfake dilemma in 2026 fiction. As AI technology becomes more sophisticated, Novelists are exploring the possibility of fabricated evidence. Imagine a scenario where a lawyer is presented with an audio recording of their client making threats. The client insists the recording is a fake, a voice-cloned manipulation created by an angry spouse. The lawyer's role here is to navigate a hall of mirrors. They have to hire expensive experts to verify the metadata, turning the legal process into a technical arms race. This introduces a new layer of psychological horror to the domestic drama. The fear that the truth is no longer a defense because the truth can be manufactured. Authors use this to show that the legal system is struggling to keep pace with technology, leaving the characters in a state of perpetual paranoia. The lawyer also acts as the gatekeeper to the digital assets. In the contemporary US, divorce is no longer just about the house and the 401k. It is about the family YouTube channel, the cryptocurrency keys, and the intellectual property of a shared brand. Case studies in recent literature show lawyers arguing over the valuation of a social media following or the rights to a lucrative podcast. This is a masterclass in the commodification of the self. The lawyer treats a couple's shared digital life as a business to be liquidated. If a couple built an audience together, who gets the login? Who gets the ad revenue? By focusing on these modern assets, authors highlight the transactional nature of 2026 relationships. The lawyer is the one who puts a dollar sign on a thumb up or a share, stripping away any remaining sentimentality. Consider the role of surveillance capitalism within the law office. Contemporary fiction often depicts lawyers using sophisticated software to predict how a specific judge might rule, based on thousands of previous cases. This data-driven approach to law removes the human element from the equation. The lawyer is no longer a grand orator in the courtroom. They are a data analyst optimizing for a specific result. This creates a sense of systemic inevitability. If the algorithm says you have a 15% chance of winning custody, the lawyer advises you to settle. This reflects a broader American trend of trusting the data over the intuition. Authors use this to make the protagonists feel even more powerless. They aren't just fighting their spouse. They are fighting a mathematical model of the legal system. We must also analyze the cyber harassment defense. In fiction, the lawyer often has to advise a client on how to handle digital stalking by a former partner. This introduces the concept of the digital restraining order. The lawyer becomes a technical advisor, telling the client to change their passwords, install encrypted messaging apps, and scrub their location data. This transforms the legal narrative into a survival guide. The lawyer is the one who understands the dark underbelly of the internet, and they use that knowledge to build a digital fortress around their client. This highlights the lawyer's evolution from a legal professional to a security consultant. It shows that in 2026, legal protection is synonymous with digital protection. Furthermore, the lawyer in fiction now has to deal with the permanent record of the internet. In the past, a messy divorce stayed in the local courthouse. Now a viral video or a leaked document can follow a character for the rest of their life. The lawyer's role includes the management of the digital legacy. They might negotiate for the deletion of certain photos, or the signing of a digital peace treaty, where both parties agree to never mention the other on social media. This is a new form of the non-disclosure agreement, tailored for the age of instant communication. Authors use this to show how the stakes of divorce have expanded from the private to the global. One wrong click can destroy a career or a reputation, and the lawyer is the only person who can prevent the fallout. Imagine a scenario where the lawyer discovers that the protagonist's child has been secretly recording the parents' arguments on a tablet. This is a common and devastating trope in contemporary fiction. The lawyer has to decide if this evidence is admissible, and what it will do to the child's well-being if it is used. This is where the digital and the ethical collide. The lawyer is forced to weigh the tactical advantage of the recording against the long-term trauma of involving the child in the litigation. Case studies in literature show that the sharp lawyer will use the recording without hesitation, while the more principled lawyer will struggle with the implications. This choice defines the lawyer's character and sets the moral tone for the entire story. Step by step, the lawyer trains the client to live a monitored life. They explain that every email is a potential exhibit, every text is a trap, and every search history is a confession. This creates a specific kind of internal monologue for the protagonist. They begin to censor their own thoughts and actions, anticipating how a lawyer would frame them. This is the ultimate victory of the legal system over the individual. The protagonist becomes their own lawyer, their own warden, and their own judge. The contemporary novelist uses this to explore the theme of the panopticon, the idea that we are always being watched, and therefore we are never truly free. But what happens when the digital evidence itself is hacked? What happens when the lawyer's own servers are breached, and the most intimate secrets of a dozen divorcing couples are spilled onto the dark web? This is the ultimate nightmare scenario for the modern legal professional. It suggests that the very tools used to secure a settlement are the most dangerous weapons of all. As we transition into the next phase of our deep dive, we will move from the digital world back into the physical courtroom to see how these two realities clash. We will analyze the high-stakes testimony and the terrifying moment when a witness is confronted with their own digital ghost in front of a jury. The next part will uncover the secret art of the cross-examination and why, in 2026, the truth is often the most dangerous thing you can bring into a courtroom. In the high-stakes arena of the American courtroom, the secret art of cross-examination is where the divorce lawyer in contemporary fiction transforms from a strategist into a surgeon. We are now entering the heart of the litigation process as depicted in 2026 literature, where the truth is not a destination but a resource to be managed, manipulated, or suppressed. Imagine if you are standing on the witness stand in a sterile courtroom in downtown Los Angeles. Across from you stands a lawyer like the one portrayed in recent legal thrillers by Scott Turow or John Grisham. They aren't going to ask you about your heartbreak. They are going to ask you about a specific receipt from a hotel in 2024. They are going to ask why your GPS pings don't match your testimony. In the modern U.S. novel, the cross-examination is a psychological autopsy performed in real time. The lawyer's goal is to trigger a specific potential outcome, the complete evaporation of your credibility. Let us analyze a case study of the character trap. Authors use the lawyer to set traps that are based on the protagonist's own virtues. If a protagonist is written as someone who prides themselves on being a devoted parent, the lawyer will spend hours asking questions about the most minute details of the child's life. The name of a substitute teacher, the specific brand of an allergy medication, the exact time of a Tuesday soccer practice. Step by step, the lawyer builds a narrative of negligence based on a single forgotten detail. This is a common historical trend in U.S. fiction. The idea that the legal system demands a level of perfection that no human being can actually maintain. The lawyer uses the witness's own exhaustion against them, waiting for that one moment of frustration where the protagonist snaps. That snap is the win. In the eyes of the fictional judge, a single angry outburst on the stand can outweigh 10 years of calm, rational parenting. Then we have the tactical use of the impeachment of testimony. In contemporary 2026 fiction, this is often done using the digital ghosts we discussed previously. Imagine a scenario where a spouse testifies that they have never had a substance abuse problem. The opposing lawyer then produces a subpoenaed record of a grocery store loyalty card, showing a consistent pattern of high-volume alcohol purchases over 3 years. This is the ultimate gotcha moment in modern domestic noir. It highlights the lawyer's role as the destroyer of the curate itself. The lawyer doesn't need to prove you are an addict. They only need to prove you lied about the grocery list. Once a lie is established, the rest of your life is treated as a fabrication. This illustrates a grim reality in fictional legal battles. The truth is often the most dangerous thing you can bring into a courtroom because it is rarely as clean or as consistent as the law requires. The lawyer also employs the weaponization of the pregnant pause. In the hands of a skilled fictional litigator, silence is more aggressive than a shout. Authors describe the way a lawyer will ask a devastating question and then simply wait, staring at the witness, allowing the silence to fill with the witness's own anxiety. This is a masterclass in pacing. It forces the character to keep talking, to over-explain, and eventually to dig their own grave. We see this frequently in the works of authors like Anita Shreve or Jodi Picoult, where the courtroom scenes are less about the law and more about the power of the unspoken. The lawyer knows that the human brain abhors a vacuum, and a witness will often fill that vacuum with a confession they never intended to make. Consider the role of the expert witness as the lawyer's mercenary. In 2026 fiction, the lawyer rarely stands alone. They bring in a forensic psychiatrist or a vocational expert. These characters are used to provide a veneer of scientific objectivity to a deeply biased argument. The lawyer's job is to translate the expert's jargon into a narrative of failure. If the psychiatrist uses a term like parental alienation, the lawyer ensures the judge hears child abuse. This translation process is a key element of the deep dive into legal fiction. It shows how the lawyer controls the vocabulary of the divorce. By defining the terms of the debate, the lawyer effectively dictates the result. The protagonist is left trying to argue against a science they don't understand, presented by an expert they didn't hire, in a language they don't speak. We must also look at the case study of the reluctant witness. Sometimes the most effective weapon a lawyer has is the person the protagonist loves most. Imagine a scenario where the lawyer calls a best friend, a sibling, or even an older child to the stand. This is where the contemporary novel reaches its emotional peak. The lawyer forces these witnesses to choose between their loyalty to the protagonist and their legal obligation to the truth. This creates a no-win situation that drives the plot toward a tragic conclusion. The lawyer is depicted as a person without sentiment, someone who is willing to destroy a friendship or a family bond if it gains their client an extra 2% of the marital estate. This reinforces the archetype of the lawyer as a social predator, someone who thrives in the wreckage of human relationships. Step by step, the lawyer also manages the judge's perception through the art of the sidebar. In fiction, the sidebar is where the real deals are made and the real opinions are formed. It is a private conversation that the protagonist can see but cannot hear. This adds to the sense of alienation. The lawyer and the judge speak a secret language of procedure and precedent that excludes the person whose life is actually on the line. This reflects a significant theme in American literature. The law is an elite club with its own rules and its own membership. The protagonist realizes they are not a participant in their divorce. They are the subject of a professional discussion between experts. Furthermore, we need to analyze the redirect examination. This is the lawyer's chance to perform damage control. If the protagonist has been slaughtered on cross-examination, the redirect is where the lawyer tries to sew them back together. In fiction, this is often portrayed as a desperate attempt to reclaim the narrative. The lawyer asks leading questions designed to give the protagonist a chance to explain their earlier mistakes. However, the potential outcome is often a sense of too little, too late. The damage is done, and the redirect feels like a hollow exercise. This highlights the finality of the courtroom. Once a bell has been rung, it cannot be unrung. The lawyer's skill lies in knowing which bells to ring and when to cover their ears. Imagine the physical toll of a trial that lasts for weeks. Contemporary authors emphasize the sensory details. The smell of floor wax, the humming of the air conditioner, the way the lawyer's suit begins to wrinkle as the days go by. This physical degradation mirrors the emotional degradation of the characters. The courtroom is a crucible that strips away everything but the essential conflict. The lawyer is the only one who seems to thrive in this environment. They are the professional athlete of the tragedy, conditioned to endure the stress that is currently destroying their client. But what happens when the trial ends, and the judge retreats to their chambers to make a decision? What happens in that agonizing window of time when the lawyers stop billing and the protagonist is left alone with the wreckage? This is the moment of the post-trial vacuum. The next part of our analysis will explore the final decree as a literary death warrant, and the disturbing ways that the lawyer prepares their client for a loss. We will dive into the secret world of the appeal and why, in the world of 2026 fiction, the end of the trial is often just the beginning of a much longer and more expensive nightmare. We will also examine the lawyer's exit interview, the moment the professional mask finally slips, revealing what they really thought of their client all along. The transition from the courtroom back to the attorney's private office after the judge has taken the matter under advisement is one of the most psychologically brutal transitions in contemporary literature. In the 2026 domestic thriller, this period is known as the dead air. Your lawyer, who was just a fiery advocate in the courtroom, suddenly becomes a distant bureaucrat. They stop looking you in the eye and start looking at their watch. This is the moment where the fictional lawyer begins the process of expectation management. Imagine if you are a protagonist who has just laid their entire life bare on the witness stand. You are shaking, exhausted, and desperate for a sign of victory. Your lawyer, however, is already moving on to their 3 p.m. filing for a different client. They tell you that we have to wait for the written ruling, which could take weeks. This creates a specific kind of American purgatory that authors use to highlight the total lack of closure provided by the legal system. The case studies of modern legal fiction show that the lawyer is trained to detach at the exact moment the client is most vulnerable. Let us examine the case study of the final decree as a literary death warrant. In novels by authors like Laura Lippman or Taffy Brodesser-Akner, the actual arrival of the divorce decree is rarely a moment of celebration. Instead, it is a cold, multi-page document that arrives via a secure portal or a courier. The lawyer's role here is to act as the interpreter of the sentence. They don't congratulate you. They explain the logistics of the asset division. Step by step, the lawyer goes through the spreadsheet. You have 45 days to vacate the residence. You have 30 days to refinance the mortgage. The potential outcomes of your entire life have been reduced to a series of deadlines. In contemporary fiction, the lawyer uses the decree to finalize the dehumanization process. The protagonist realizes that the person they were at the start of the book no longer exists, and the person they have become is a creature of the court's making. Then we have the chilling phenomenon of the lawyer's exit interview. This is a trope gaining massive traction in 2026 fiction, where the professional mask finally slips. Imagine a scenario where the final papers are signed, the fees are paid, and the protagonist asks the lawyer what they really thought of the case. In a moment of devastating candor, the lawyer might reveal that they never believed the protagonist's version of events, or that they found the spouse to be the more sympathetic party. This is a masterclass in narrative betrayal. It forces the reader to realize that the person they thought was their champion was actually just a highly paid actor. The lawyer reveals that to them, the truth was irrelevant. Only the billable hours and the technical victory mattered. This historical trend in fiction reflects a deep-seated distrust of the billable hour model, where loyalty is seen as a commodity that expires the moment the contract ends. The post-trial vacuum is also where we see the introduction of the appeal as a narrative loop. In the world of 2026 fiction, the end of a trial is often just a false summit. The lawyer explains that while they won the initial round, the spouse is likely to file an appeal, which could drag the process out for another 18 months. This is used by authors to create a sense of eternal conflict. The lawyer becomes a permanent fixture in the protagonist's life, a recurring expense that prevents any real healing. This illustrates the systemic dread of the U.S. legal system, the idea that once you enter the machine you may never truly get out. The lawyer is the one who keeps the machine running, often by pointing out technicalities or procedural errors that allow the litigation to continue indefinitely. Consider the role of the final billing statement as the story's epilogue. Many contemporary writers are now using the itemized bill as a way to summarize the plot of the novel. Each line item, review of emails, preparation of motion, phone call with opposing counsel, is a reminder of a specific emotional trauma. The protagonist looks at the bill and sees their entire tragedy converted into a dollar amount. The lawyer's role in this stage is purely transactional. They are no longer a protector, they are a creditor. This shift in the power dynamic is a key element of the deep dive. The protagonist, who was once the client, is now the debtor. The case studies show that this is often the point where the protagonist feels the most resentment toward their own legal team. They realize that while they lost their family, their home, and their peace of mind, the lawyer made a significant profit. We must also analyze the psychological impact of the non-disparagement clause in the final hours. In fiction, the lawyer often insists on a clause that prevents either party from speaking ill of the other in public or on social media. In 2026, this extends to an agreement to never write a memoir or a blog post about the divorce. This is the ultimate irony. The protagonist has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to gain their freedom, only to be told by their lawyer that they are legally prohibited from telling their own story. The lawyer is the architect of this silence. They argue that it protects the children or the professional reputations of the parties, but for the protagonist, it feels like a final act of erasure. The lawyer has successfully privatized the tragedy, ensuring that it remains a closed file in a locked cabinet. Furthermore, let's look at the post-divorce relationship with the lawyer. In some contemporary novels, the protagonist develops a strange, lingering dependency on their attorney. They call the lawyer to ask about minor disputes, who gets the kids for an unscheduled holiday, or how to handle a repair on the marital home. The lawyer, in turn, continues to bill for every minute. This depicts the lawyer as a surrogate spouse, a person who provides a twisted form of stability in the absence of the marriage. It is a parasitic relationship that authors use to show how the legal process can stunt a character's emotional growth. The protagonist never learns to communicate with their ex-spouse because they always have a professional to do it for them. Step by step, we see the lawyer prepare the client for the aftermath of the settlement. They give a speech about moving on and finding a new normal. But in the best contemporary fiction, this speech is portrayed as hollow and rehearsed. The lawyer has given it 1,000 times to 1,000 different clients. It is the verbal equivalent of a participation trophy. The protagonist realizes that to the lawyer, this was just a job, while to them it was the end of the world. This gap in perception is the final nail in the coffin of the client-lawyer relationship. Imagine the protagonist walking out of the law office for the last time. They look back and see the lawyer already welcoming a new client into the inner sanctum. The cycle begins again. The lawyer is the constant. The families are the variables. This cyclical nature of the industry is what makes the divorce lawyer such a haunting figure in U.S. fiction. They are the survivors of every war they start. They are the only ones who walk away with more than they had when the process began. But what happens when the protagonist decides to fight back against the system itself? What happens when a character realizes that their own lawyer has been working against their interests to prolong the case? The next part of our masterclass will dive into the lawyer as the secret antagonist. We will uncover the chilling world of legal malpractice in fiction and the high-stakes drama of the lawyer versus client showdown. We will look at how 2026 authors are exploring the dark side of the attorney-client privilege and what happens when the one person who knows all your secrets becomes your most dangerous enemy. This is where the deep dive turns into a psychological thriller of the highest order. The concept of the lawyer as a secret antagonist marks a terrifying shift in the narrative of contemporary American fiction. In this 2026 literary landscape, we are seeing a subgenre emerge where the courtroom is merely a distraction from the real betrayal happening behind the scenes. This is the betrayal of the fiduciary duty. Imagine if you are a protagonist in a high-stakes legal thriller. You have shared your deepest vulnerabilities, your financial indiscretions, and your darkest fears with your counsel, believing in the absolute protection of attorney-client privilege. But then you notice a pattern. Every time you make a strategic gain, your lawyer suggests a concession that nullifies it. You begin to suspect that your advocate is not playing to win, they are playing to maximize the conflict. In fiction, this is the lawyer as the saboteur. They don't want the case to end because an ended case is a closed revenue stream. Let us examine a case study of the strategic inefficiency. In recent works by writers like Michael Connelly or contemporary domestic noir authors, the lawyer character is often depicted using tactical delays as a weapon against their own client. This is a masterclass in systemic gaslighting. The lawyer tells the client that the court is backed up, or that the opposing counsel is being difficult, when in reality, the lawyer is purposefully failing to file motions or schedule depositions. This historical trend in fiction reflects a deep-seated public anxiety about the lack of transparency in legal billing. The lawyer becomes an antagonist because they have a financial incentive to keep the characters in a state of high-stress litigation. They fuel the fires of resentment between the spouses, knowing that as long as the parties are angry, they will keep paying to fight. This transforms the lawyer from a healer into a parasite who thrives on the host's domestic misery. Then we have the chilling scenario of the collusive opposing counsel. Imagine a plot twist where the two lawyers, supposedly bitter rivals representing opposing sides, are actually working together to drain both marital estates. In 2026 fiction, this is the ultimate betrayal. They meet for drinks, they compare notes on how much liquidity is left in the respective bank accounts, and they coordinate their motions to ensure the case lasts long enough to liquidate the equity in the family home. This narrative choice highlights the vulnerability of the layperson in a specialized system. The protagonist is trapped in a game where the rules are written in a language they don't speak, and the only people who can help them are in league with the enemy. This creates a potential outcome of total financial and psychological ruin, orchestrated by the very people sworn to prevent it. The weaponization of attorney-client privilege is another fascinating layer. In many contemporary U.S. novels, the lawyer uses the information they gathered during the discovery phase to blackmail or manipulate the client into accepting a settlement that is unfavorable, but convenient for the law firm. They might subtly remind the client that if the case goes to trial, certain embarrassing facts might become public record, facts the lawyer themselves encouraged the client to share in private. This is a violation of the spirit of the law, but in the hands of a fictional antagonist, it is a brilliant move of checkmate. The lawyer holds the client's reputation hostage. This illustrates the terrifying power of information asymmetry in the legal profession. When one person knows everything and the other knows only what they are told, the relationship is ripe for exploitation. Step by step, the protagonist begins to uncover the lawyer's duplicity. It usually starts with a discrepancy in the billing statement, a charge for a meeting that never happened, or a research fee that seems exorbitant. In the 2026 thriller, the character of the whistleblower paralegal often reappears here, providing the protagonist with the evidence of their lawyer's misconduct. This shifts the genre from a domestic drama to a professional conspiracy. The protagonist must now fight two wars simultaneously: the divorce from their spouse and the legal malpractice battle against their own firm. This doubles the stakes and creates a feeling of being surrounded by enemies. The lawyer, once the shield, is now the sword hanging over the character's head. Consider the role of the conflict of interest as a plot engine. Authors often write scenarios where a lawyer is secretly representing a business partner of the spouse, or has a past relationship with the judge that they failed to disclose. These hidden connections are the landmines of the narrative. When they explode, they destroy the protagonist's faith in the entire justice system. The lawyer's defense is always a technicality. I didn't think it was relevant, or it didn't impact my judgment. But for the reader, it confirms the suspicion that the law is a rigged game played by elites. The lawyer is the personification of this corruption, using their expertise to navigate the gray areas of ethics while keeping their client in the dark. We must also analyze the lawyer-client showdown. In the climax of these stories, the protagonist finally confronts their attorney. This is not a battle of evidence, but a battle of wills. The lawyer uses their command of language and their intimidating presence to try and cow the client back into submission. They threaten to withdraw from the case on the eve of trial, leaving the client defenseless, or they threaten to sue for unpaid fees. This is a moment of raw power dynamics. The protagonist realizes that the lawyer is the most dangerous person they have ever met, because the lawyer knows exactly how to hurt them legally, financially, and socially. It is a masterclass in professional intimidation, showing how the tools of the trade can be turned into tools of oppression. Imagine a scenario where the lawyer has been secretly funneling information to the other side to ensure the divorce ends in a way that benefits a third party, perhaps a corporate entity interested in the family's land or business. This is the lawyer as the corporate Trojan horse. It expands the scope of the divorce from a personal tragedy to a larger systemic theft. The lawyer isn't just a bad person. They are a cog in a much larger, more predatory machine. This reflects a contemporary American fear that even our most private failures are being monetized by outside forces. The lawyer is the person who opens the door for these forces, trading their client's future for a seat at a bigger table. The psychological impact on the protagonist is profound. They experience a double grief, the loss of the marriage and the loss of the protector. This leads to a state of total cynicism. In the 2026 literary landscape, many protagonists end the book not just as divorcees, but as people who have been permanently hardened by the legal process. They learn that trust is a liability, and that the only person they can rely on is themselves. This is the true legacy of the lawyer antagonist. They don't just take the client's money, they take their ability to believe in the possibility of justice. But what if the lawyer isn't just a secret antagonist, but a victim of the same system? What if the pressures of the billable hour and the toxicity of family law have turned a once idealistic advocate into a monster? The next part of our deep dive will shift the perspective to the lawyer's own breakdown. We will explore the case studies of the burned-out attorney, the ethics of the legal industry's mental health crisis, and the terrifying moment when the lawyer loses their mind in the middle of a deposition. We will look at why contemporary fiction is increasingly obsessed with the tragedy of the person behind the bar, and what happens when the professional who is supposed to solve your problems becomes a bigger problem than the divorce itself. The next phase reveals the cracks in the mahogany desk and the dark reality of the legal mind under pressure. The dark reality of the legal mind under pressure is a burgeoning theme in 2026 American fiction, where authors have begun to peel back the mahogany veneer to reveal the psychological decay of the divorce lawyer. We are moving away from the lawyer as an invincible machine and toward the lawyer as a structural failure point. Imagine if you are sitting in a deposition and your attorney, a veteran of 20 years of matrimonial warfare, suddenly stops mid-sentence. They don't just lose their train of thought, they experience a total dissociative break. They look at the opposing spouse, then at you, and realize they have spent their entire adult life dismantling families for a living. In contemporary US fiction, this is the archetype of the burned-out advocate. Authors use this to show that the toxic atmosphere of family law is not just damaging to the clients, but corrosive to the practitioners themselves. This shift explores the potential outcomes of a career spent in the proximity of high-conflict domestic trauma, highlighting historical trends that suggest legal professionals suffer from significantly higher rates of anxiety and secondary traumatic stress than the general population. Let us examine a case study of the ethical erosion. In many recent novels, the lawyer's breakdown does not happen all at once. It happens in increments of 6 minutes. Step by step, the lawyer begins to cut corners. They miss a filing deadline not out of malice, but out of a profound, paralyzing apathy. They stop answering the phone. They start drinking in the office at noon. This is a masterclass in professional disintegration. Authors use this to raise the stakes for the protagonist. Now the main character is not just fighting a divorce. They are tethered to a sinking ship. The person who was supposed to be their navigator is now the greatest liability in the room. This reflects a gritty, realistic trend in 2026 literature where the hero must often save their own lawyer from a mental health crisis just to keep their legal case from collapsing. Then we have the chilling scenario of the lawyer as the mirror. In fiction, the lawyer's personal life is often written as a disastrous reflection of the cases they handle. Imagine a protagonist discovering that their lawyer is currently going through their own fourth divorce, while simultaneously charging $500 an hour to give advice on how to save a marriage or secure a fair settlement. This irony is a staple of contemporary U.S. social satire. It suggests that the expertise being sold is purely technical, devoid of any actual wisdom or successful application in the lawyer's own life. The attorney becomes a tragic figure, a cobbler whose own children have no shoes. By portraying the lawyer as a broken person, authors challenge the American myth of the professional expert. We see that the person behind the bar is just as lost, just as angry, and just as desperate as the client sitting across from them. The 2026 literary landscape is also obsessed with the deposition breakdown. Imagine a high-stakes scene where the lawyer is supposed to be cross-examining the spouse, but instead, they begin to project their own personal grievances onto the witness. They start asking questions that aren't about the case but about their own failed relationships. This is a moment of total narrative collapse. The professional boundaries evaporate, and the courtroom or conference room becomes a theater of the absurd. Authors use this to illustrate the fragility of the legal persona. When the mask of the objective litigator falls, what is left is a person who has seen too much human misery and has no place to put it. This serves as a cautionary tale about the cost of professional detachment. You can only look into the abyss of other people's divorces for so long before the abyss starts looking back into your own home life. Consider the role of the billable hour as a mental health trigger. In contemporary fiction, the constant need to track time in tenth-of-an-hour increments is depicted as a form of psychological torture. The lawyer character begins to see their entire life through this lens. They can't have a conversation with their own child without mentally calculating the lost revenue. They can't sleep because they are calculating the overhead of their office. This creates a character who is profoundly alienated from the present moment. Case studies in 2026 novels show lawyers who have become so obsessed with the commodification of time that they have lost the ability to experience any emotion that doesn't have a line item equivalent. This is the ultimate tragedy of the legal mind, the conversion of life into a spreadsheet. We must also analyze the lawyer's substance abuse as a plot device. While a historical trope, the modern treatment of this issue is much more clinical and devastating. Instead of the charming drunk, we see the functional addict, the lawyer who uses stimulants to stay awake for a 48-hour trial preparation and sedatives to crash for 4 hours. The lawyer's office becomes a pharmacy of professional survival. This highlights the extreme pressure of the U.S. legal system, where the winner-take-all mentality forces individuals to sacrifice their physical and mental health for a tactical advantage. The protagonist eventually realizes that their legal victory was built on the back of a person who is literally killing themselves to maintain their professional standing. Step by step, the protagonist's relationship with their lawyer shifts from dependency to pity. This is a profound reversal of the traditional power dynamic. When the protagonist sees their lawyer crying in the bathroom before a hearing or realizes that the lawyer has no friends outside of the local bar association, the power balance shifts. The client becomes the emotional caretaker. This adds a layer of complexity to the story. How do you fire someone who is clearly having a breakdown, but who also holds the keys to your future? This moral dilemma is a recurring theme in the 2026 domestic thriller, forcing the character to decide if they are willing to exploit their lawyer's instability to get a better deal, or if they will act with a humanity that the legal system itself lacks. Imagine the lawyer's office at night. In contemporary fiction, these spaces are often described as haunted. They are filled with the ghosts of cases past, the files of children now grown, the settlements of people now dead. The lawyer is the caretaker of this museum of misery. Authors use these descriptions to create a gothic atmosphere within a modern setting. The mahogany desk is not a symbol of success, but a coffin for the lawyer's soul. This imagery reinforces the idea that the legal profession is a high-cost trade, where the currency is the lawyer's own empathy. Furthermore, we see the rise of the disbarred lawyer as a narrator. In some of the most innovative 2026 fiction, the story is told by a lawyer who has already lost everything. They are looking back on a career of domestic carnage and explaining how they became the monster they once despised. This retrospective narrative allows for a deep, philosophical exploration of the nature of conflict. The lawyer explains the tricks of the trade not to help the reader win, but to warn them of the cost of entering the arena. They provide a masterclass in regret, showing that every tactical win in a divorce case often feels like a moral loss in the long run. But what happens when the lawyer's breakdown goes public? What happens when a viral video of a prominent attorney's mid-court meltdown becomes the centerpiece of a national conversation about the justice system? This leads us into the final acts of the contemporary legal narrative. As we move into the next part of our deep dive, we will explore the lawyer as a cultural sacrifice. We will look at the trial of the lawyer themselves, not for malpractice, but for the sin of being the face of a broken system. We will analyze how 2026 authors are using the fall of the high-profile divorce attorney to symbolize the collapse of traditional American institutions. The next phase reveals the public execution of a reputation and the terrifying speed at which the protector can become the pariah. The public execution of a legal reputation in 2026 fiction is not a quiet affair. It is a high-definition, multi-platform event that symbolizes a broader American disillusionment with the machinery of justice. We are now entering the penultimate phase of our deep dive, where the divorce lawyer is no longer the predator or the protector, but the prey. Imagine if you are a high-profile attorney in a major U.S. city. For decades, you have been the one leaking stories to the press to leverage a better settlement for your clients. But suddenly the tide turns. A disgruntled former client, perhaps a protagonist we have followed through the previous 8 parts of this narrative, uploads a series of recorded conversations or leaked billing statements that go viral on social media. In the contemporary U.S. novel, this is the moment of the pariah pivot. The lawyer's expertise, once seen as a sign of professional mastery, is reframed as a record of systemic exploitation. Authors use this to explore the potential outcomes of a society that has reached a breaking point with the cost of domestic litigation. Let us examine a case study of the viral disbarment. In recent literature, the fall of the lawyer is often accelerated by the very digital tools they use to dismantle others. We see characters based on the public's perception of legal influencers who find their entire careers incinerated in a single weekend. The lawyer is hounded by citizen journalists and activists who view the family court system as a site of institutionalized trauma. This historical trend in fiction reflects a real-world shift toward radical transparency. Step by step, the lawyer's life is dismantled. Their prestigious office lease is terminated. Their professional associations distance themselves, and their former partners turn state's evidence to save their own licenses. This is a masterclass in the speed of modern infamy. The author uses this to show that in 2026, a reputation built over 30 years can be liquidated in 30 seconds if the narrative shifts from champion to villain. Then we have the chilling scenario of the lawyer as a cultural sacrifice. In many contemporary novels, a high-profile divorce case becomes a proxy for a larger social conflict, be it class warfare, gender dynamics, or the ethics of wealth. The lawyer becomes the face of everything the public hates about the elite. Imagine a scenario where a lawyer is defending a billionaire in a particularly nasty custody battle. The public isn't just angry at the billionaire. They are angry at the lawyer for making the billionaire's behavior legally defensible. This archetype serves a specific narrative function. It allows the author to put the entire U.S. legal system on trial. The lawyer's defense, that they are simply doing their job and providing a zealous advocacy, is portrayed as an obsolete excuse in a world demanding moral accountability. The potential outcome is a character who is legally right but socially dead. The 2026 literary landscape also explores the concept of the rebound litigation. This is where the victims of the lawyer's previous successes band together to file a massive class action malpractice suit. Imagine a protagonist who discovers a hidden network of people whose lives were ruined by the same firm. This turns the solo domestic drama into a collective thriller. The lawyer, who spent their life dividing people, is now facing a united front. Authors use this to show the power of collective memory in the digital age. Case studies in fiction show that the lawyer's meticulous record-keeping, once their greatest asset, becomes their greatest liability as every overcharged minute and every coach testimony is brought into the light. This is the ultimate irony of the legal mind. The more you document your work, the more evidence you provide for your own downfall. Consider the role of the media trial as a narrative crucible. In contemporary fiction, the actual courtroom becomes secondary to the court of public opinion. The lawyer finds themselves being cross-examined by news anchors and podcast hosts. They are no longer in control of the vocabulary. When they use words like attorney-client privilege, the public hears cover-up. When they say vigorous defense, the public hears bullying. This linguistic disconnect is a hallmark of 2026 storytelling. It shows that the legal profession has lost its mandate to define the truth for the American public. The lawyer is left shouting into a void, unable to understand why the rules they followed for decades no longer protect them. We must also analyze the lawyer's family as the unintended victims. In the most poignant contemporary U.S. novels, the lawyer's fall from grace destroys their own domestic life, the very thing they spent their career dissecting in others. Imagine the lawyer's own children being bullied at school because of a viral video of their parents' professional misconduct. The lawyer, who specialized in child custody, finds themselves losing the respect and presence of their own kids. This is the poetic justice often employed by modern authors. It forces the lawyer to experience the visceral pain they previously viewed as a professional abstraction. This narrative choice reinforces the theme that the law is not a bubble. The fires you light in other people's homes eventually find their way back to your own. Step by step, the protagonist's role in this downfall is revealed to be one of cold, calculated revenge. The client has learned too much from the lawyer. They have learned how to wait, how to gather evidence, and how to strike when the enemy is most vulnerable. The student has surpassed the master in the art of destruction. This reflects a cynical but powerful truth in 2026 fiction. The legal system doesn't make people better. It makes them more effective at being worse. The protagonist doesn't find peace through the lawyer's fall. They find a grim satisfaction in the application of the very tactics the lawyer taught them. Furthermore, we see the rise of the redemption arc that fails. Some authors attempt to show the lawyer trying to make amends, taking pro bono cases or speaking out against the system. But in the gritty realism of 2026, these efforts are often portrayed as too little too late. The public and the victims are not interested in the lawyer's growth. They are interested in their disappearance. This highlights a shift in American storytelling toward the permanent cancellation. There is no way back from the specialized brand of hatred reserved for a disgraced divorce lawyer. They are the person who saw the worst of us and chose to profit from it, and for that, the narrative rarely grants them a second act. Imagine the physical isolation of the pariah. The luxury high-rise office is replaced by a cramped apartment. The designer suits are replaced by generic clothes. The lawyer becomes a ghost in their own city, a name that people whisper with a mix of fear and disgust. This sensory shift is used by authors to emphasize the total loss of status. The lawyer's power was always an illusion, built on the willingness of others to believe in the authority of the bar. Once that belief is gone, the lawyer is just another person in a city full of people, unable to command a room or a billable hour. But as we reach the end of this public execution, a final question remains. If the lawyer is gone, what happens to the system they left behind? Does the removal of the predator make the forest any safer? Or does it simply leave a vacuum for an even more efficient, digital and heartless form of litigation to take its place? The next and final part of our masterclass will explore the future of the divorce lawyer in 2026 and beyond. We will analyze the rise of the AI litigator, the end of the human courtroom, and the terrifying prospect of a world where our most intimate failures are judged not by a person, but by a cold, unfeeling algorithm. The final phase reveals the true endgame of the American divorce: the total automation of heartbreak. The total automation of heartbreak is no longer a science fiction premise. In the literature of 2026, it is the new realism. As we conclude this masterclass, we must analyze the final evolution of the divorce lawyer archetype, the transition from the charismatic orator to the architect of the algorithm. In contemporary U.S. fiction, we are seeing a surge in narratives where the human lawyer is replaced by an AI mediator, a digital entity capable of processing decades of case law, financial records, and psychological data in milliseconds. Imagine if you are a protagonist in a 2026 novel by an author like Dave Eggers or Gary Steingart. You do not meet your lawyer in a wood-paneled office. Instead, you log into a platform that asks you to upload your entire digital existence. The lawyer is now a prompt, a chatbot that promises objectivity, but delivers a cold mathematical dismantling of your domestic life. This reflects a historical trend where the American public, exhausted by the cost and bias of human litigators, seeks refuge in the perceived fairness of the machine. However, as contemporary fiction illustrates, the potential outcomes of this shift are far more chilling than the human corruption we have explored thus far. Let us examine a case study of the algorithmic asset split. In traditional fiction, the division of assets was a scene of high drama, full of negotiation and spite. In 2026 fiction, this is handled by a feature called the equity optimizer. The algorithm analyzes the market trends of 2026, the tax implications of every U.S. state, and the projected future value of your retirement accounts. It then generates a non-negotiable split based on a utilitarian calculation of maximum efficiency. Authors use this to strip the characters of their last vestige of agency. You cannot argue with the math. If the algorithm decides that selling the family home is the only logical path to fiscal stability, the human emotion attached to that home is categorized as an irrational variable and discarded. This is the masterclass in the dehumanization of the law. The lawyer is no longer a person you can persuade or plead with. The lawyer is a line of code that views your marriage as a series of data points to be optimized. Then we have the rise of the predictive parenting model. In novels exploring the future of the American family, custody is no longer decided by a judge's intuition or a lawyer's silver tongue. Instead, AI systems analyze the social media feeds, location data, and even the biometric stress levels of both parents to predict who will provide the most stable environment. Imagine a scenario where a character is denied primary custody because an algorithm determined that their erratic sleep patterns and frequent late-night grocery runs, tracked via their smart car and credit card, suggest a 10% higher risk of domestic instability. This is the ultimate invasion of privacy, and in fiction, the lawyer's role is simply to facilitate this data transfer. The lawyer becomes a technician, a person who helps you optimize your behavior to please the algorithm. Step by step, the protagonist is forced to live a life that looks good to a machine, leading to a profound sense of self-alienation that is a hallmark of 2026 literary themes. Consider the role of the digital arbitrator in the context of the no-fault state. In 2026 fiction, the legal system has become so efficient that a divorce can be finalized in a matter of clicks. Authors use this to highlight the lack of ritual and gravity in modern endings. If the lawyer is a bot and the courtroom is a server, where does the grief go? This creates a psychological vacuum in the narrative. Characters find themselves legally single, but emotionally unresolved, as they never had the catharsis of the confrontation. The lawyer bot provides a clean break, but the fiction suggests that humans need a messy break to truly move on. This is a critique of the efficiency at all costs mindset of the modern U.S. legal industry. By removing the friction of the legal process, the system has also removed the opportunity for growth or closure. We must also analyze the case study of the bias in the bot. In several high-retention thrillers of the current year, the plot centers on the discovery that the AI legal systems are trained on decades of biased human rulings. The protagonist realizes that the machine is just as prejudiced as the old guard lawyers, but its bias is hidden behind a veneer of technical infallibility. The lawyer character in these stories is often the whistleblower, a former high-powered attorney who now spends their time hacking the system they helped build. This shifts the archetype of the lawyer once again, turning them into a digital insurgent fighting against a technocracy. It shows that in the 2026 American consciousness, we fear the unfeeling machine even more than the greedy human. The potential outcome of a fully automated legal system is not justice. It is the permanent codification of past mistakes. Furthermore, let's look at the commodification of the AI lawyer itself. In fiction, there are different tiers of legal algorithms. The wealthy characters have access to the gold tier AI, which is programmed to find every loophole and maximize every tax advantage. The middle-class characters use a basic version that follows the letter of the law with no nuance. This introduces a new form of class warfare into the domestic novel. The lawyer is no longer a human being with a moral compass, but a software package that dictates the quality of your justice based on your subscription level. Authors use this to reflect the 2026 American reality of tiered access to essential services. The divorce lawyer, once a symbol of individual advocacy, becomes a symbol of the ultimate digital divide. Step by step, the contemporary novel leads us to the final realization. The legal system was never about the truth, it was about the narrative. Whether that narrative is crafted by a human shark or a silicon processor, its goal is to replace the messy, contradictory reality of a human relationship with a coherent, legally binding story. The protagonist at the end of a 2026 divorce novel is often a person who no longer recognizes their own history. Their marriage has been processed, their parenting has been quantified, and their future has been projected. The lawyer, in their final form, is the person who hands them the keys to a life they no longer feel they own. Imagine the final scene of the masterclass. A protagonist sitting in a quiet room, looking at a screen that says divorce finalized. There are no billable hours left, no more affidavits to sign, and no more lawyers to call. The silence is deafening. This is the endgame of the American divorce in fiction, the total victory of the process over the person. We have traced the lawyer from the predator of the 1990s to the digital executioner of the 2020s and finally to the algorithm of 2026. Each iteration has stripped away a layer of human connection, leaving behind a system that is perfectly efficient and perfectly heartless. But is there a way back? In the very latest 2026 releases, we are seeing the first flickers of a counter-movement. Authors are starting to write about the return of the human advocate, lawyers who refuse to use the algorithms, who insist on meeting in person, and who view the law as a craft rather than a calculation. These characters are portrayed as rebels, as relics of a more empathetic age. They represent the hope that the American domestic narrative is not yet finished, and that as long as there is heartbreak, there will be a need for a human being to help us navigate the wreckage. This concludes our deep dive masterclass into the divorce lawyer in U.S. contemporary fiction. We have deconstructed the power, the money, the digital surveillance, and the psychological warfare that defines this archetype. But the story of the American family is constantly evolving. As the technology of 2026 continues to shift, so too will the narratives we tell ourselves about love, loss, and the law. If you want to understand how the next wave of literature will handle the fallout of the digital age, or if you are curious about how these fictional tropes are currently influencing real-world legal strategies in U.S. courtrooms, you need to stay tuned for our next series. We are moving from the courtroom to the boardroom to analyze the CEO as the modern tragic hero. What happens when the person who owns the algorithm is the one getting the divorce? The intersection of high finance, tech monopoly, and domestic collapse is our next destination.